Deshaun Watson is crumbling right before our eyes. Deshaun Watson is crumbling in this competition versus Shedeur Sanders.
Deshaun Watson is crumbling right before our eyes, and the implosion is happening so fast that the Cleveland front office is entirely terrified. We are witnessing one of the most drastic, humiliating downfalls of a highly paid athlete in modern sports history. What was supposed to be a redemption tour for the former superstar has rapidly turned into a daily disaster class on the practice field. The Cleveland Browns opened up their highly anticipated 2026 training camp, hoping to see a rejuvenated, healthy franchise quarterback ready to lead them to a championship. Instead, they are watching a man who looks completely broken, both physically and mentally, drowning under the pressure of his own massive expectations. Every single time he steps onto the grass, the whispers from the bleachers get louder, the local radio hosts get angrier, and the tension in the facility gets thicker. The supposed savior of the franchise is being systematically dismantled in a quarterback competition he was never supposed to lose, fighting for his professional life against a second-year player drafted in the 5th round. And what happened during the first 3 days of camp would send an absolute shockwave through the entire league. The sheer volume of turnovers being committed by the starting offense is genuinely hard to comprehend. In just 3 non-padded practice sessions, Deshaun Watson managed to throw a staggering 5 interceptions, looking completely out of sync with his receivers and terrified of the opposing secondary. Some apologists tried to defend him early on, pointing out that one of the interceptions bounced directly off the snake-like hands of Jerry Jeudy. But the benefit of the doubt vanished almost immediately when Watson followed it up with throws that belong in a high school junior varsity game. He dropped back in full 11-on-11 drills, stared down his primary read, and threw a completely uncatchable ball directly into the face mask of a sitting defender. It was a textbook pick six, a house call that left the coaching staff completely speechless on the sideline. The embarrassment reached an absolute boiling point during a live sports radio broadcast on 92.3 The Fan. While the hosts were actively debating the quarterback battle on air, breaking news interrupted the segment to announce Watson had just thrown his 3rd interception of that single.
Quincy Williams is everywhere. Carson Schwarzenegger's everywhere.
Denzel balling.
Denzel's like breaking up all these passes. So that's why I think it's important for people to remember like context here. Like, yeah, you can go look at the quarterback trackers and all these things.
Practice session. A live broadcast captured the exact moment the local media realized their franchise quarterback was completely cooked. But that wasn't even the worst part of this developing nightmare. The most terrifying aspect of this collapse is the massive financial anchor chained to the organization's ankle. We are talking about an unprecedented $230 million, fully guaranteed contract that the Browns absolutely cannot escape. This isn't just a bad draft pick they can cut and move on.
Tough sledding, man. Like, it is struggle city for whoever's going against this first-team defense. Shedeur didn't have a very good day against the first-team defense. He didn't throw any interceptions the way that Deshaun did. But it was a lot of just like checking the ball down, didn't have time to throw.
This is a historic financial commitment that has paralyzed their salary cap for half a decade. To make matters infinitely worse, Watson is desperately trying to return from a brutal series of back-to-back Achilles injuries that wiped out his 2024 and 2025 campaigns. The fluid athleticism, the electric escapability, and the fearless playmaking ability that made
Dominated. We got to get into it, man. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. This video here is about Deshaun Watson and his interceptions. I mean, he's turning the ball over left and right, and you're not even in pads. Take a look. Okay. Boom. I don't know.
made him a superstar in Houston are completely gone. He is stepping into the pocket with heavy, hesitant feet, second-guessing his reads, and playing with a visible fear of re-injury. The front office is watching $250 million evaporate in real time, knowing that if they bench him, they will be admitting to the worst trade and contract negotiation in the history of professional football. They desperately need him to look like a competent starter to save their own jobs, but the practice tape is brutally unforgiving. And what happened on the opposite end of the practice field would force the coaches to face a reality they were desperately trying to ignore. While Watson was busy handing the ball to the opposing defense, a completely different narrative was unfolding with the second unit. Shedeur Sanders, the highly publicized prospect who shockingly plummeted to the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, was quietly putting on an absolute clinic. Operating with a massive chip on his shoulder and a point to prove, Sanders took the field and executed the offense with surgical precision. While the starter was struggling to complete a simple out route, Shedeur put together a nearly flawless sequence, completing 16 of his 19 pass attempts without turning the ball over a single time. He looked calm, decisive, and entirely unbothered by the chaos swirling around the facility. Sanders wasn't forcing throws into double coverage or panicking under the simulated pass rush. He was taking exactly what...
Again today, Deshaun's been with the ones 2 days, and the 2 days he lost, he was with the ones. Why is that? Earl.
Wait a minute.
Whoever's going against...
Wait a minute. This just in. Deshaun Watson has thrown his 3rd interception today. He's thrown his 3rd pick today. You can't make it up. We got to get to the footage, man.
The defense gave him, methodically moving the chains and completely winning over the offensive locker room. He has publicly stated that they are both just trying to be the best versions of themselves, but privately, he smells blood in the water. He knows that the gap between him and the highest paid player on the roster has completely vanished. But that wasn't the whole story, because a massive secret weapon was working in the young quarterback's favor behind the scenes. The most fascinating dynamic in this entire quarterback controversy lies directly with the man calling the plays. Rookie head coach Todd Monken inherited this toxic, high-stakes situation, but he has zero personal loyalty to the massive contract weighing down his depth chart. In fact, Monken has a very specific, undeniable history with the young challenger. When Monken was coordinating the offense in Baltimore...
At it, and then I'm going to go to the next pick. We're going to go to the next interception. He's up to 5 picks. That hit the receiver's body first, though. So I'm going to blame, I don't want to give him too much on that. I want to be fair. Okay? Let's go to Deshaun Watson's 2nd pick.
The previous year, he heavily evaluated Shedeur Sanders during the pre-draft process and openly wanted to select him. During a highly publicized interaction at mandatory minicamps, Monken was actually seen pulling Sanders by the shoulder pad and telling him that he tried to draft his as asterisk a year ago. That level of undeniable chemistry and mutual respect is impossible to ignore when the veteran starter is actively throwing the season away. Monken has adamantly refused to name Watson the official Week 1 starter, telling the media that they simply have 2 starting-level quarterbacks and the best man will eventually win the job. It is a psychological masterclass in coaching, applying immense, suffocating pressure onto a fragile veteran while simultaneously empowering a young draft pick to aggressively steal the spotlight. And what happened next would...
They just kind of show up to camp and it's like, hey, let's just play ball. Like, just read and react. Like, you know what you're looking at. You know what you're doing. There's no pads on yet, so the offensive line can't, get into guys. The defensive line can just kind of get off the snap and go while the offensive line is still learning things. So it's a cliche, but it is true that the defense tends to be ahead of the offense. But I'll tell you, man, if you're somebody who was once...
Expose the ultimate flaw in Watson's fragile comeback attempt. The true unsung hero of this entire training camp controversy is the Cleveland Browns' absolutely terrifying first-team defense. For months, critics have loudly claimed that this defensive unit would take a massive step backward after losing legendary coordinator Jim Schwartz and superstar pass rusher Myles Garrett. The national media completely wrote them off, assuming the defense would be a shell of its former self. But defensive play caller Mike Ruttenberg has unleashed an absolute meat grinder on the practice field, and Deshaun Watson is taking the brunt of the punishment. Despite not even wearing full pads yet, defensive monsters like Mason Graham, Mike Hall, and Quincy Williams are practically living in the offensive backfield. They are jumping snaps, disguising complex coverages, and forcing the quarterbacks into...
Tom Monken's ready to make a decision and decide who's been the better quarterback. But obviously, I think through the first 3 days, Shedeur Sanders has been the better quarterback of the 2 that are fighting for the job. I think the
split-second panic decisions. Denzel Ward and the secondary are feasting on the erratic throws, breaking up passes and jumping lazy routes with terrifying speed. When Shedeur Sanders faced this elite unit, he struggled, but he survived by checking the ball down and refusing to force throws. When Watson faced them, his declining processing speed was brutally exposed, leading to catastrophic turnovers and complete offensive stagnation. But the ultimate insult to the starting quarterback didn't even come from the elite first-team defense. The humiliation reached an entirely new level when you analyze the performance of the man sitting firmly at the very bottom of the depth chart. Third-string quarterback Dillon Gabriel, a former third-round pick fighting just to stay relevant.
The guy who's going against the first-team defense has struggled. That's just facts. The guy who's going against the second team or the third team, because Dillon Gabriel's looked really good the first 3 days, they've had more success. So that's not to say that like Dillon Gabriel is going to be the starting quarterback and he's the best quarterback on the roster. He's going against the third team. So you'd expect him to be able to make some plays.
But it's more of a tip to the cap.
In the league, stepped onto the field and accomplished something the $200 million man completely failed to do. Operating against the reserve defenses, Gabriel looked incredibly sharp, completing 7 of his 9 passes and actually finding the end zone. In fact, Gabriel was the only quarterback in the entire opening slate of practices to throw a legitimate touchdown pass, perfectly dropping a beautiful will route right into the hands of Gage Larvadain. Gabriel's success effectively destroyed any lingering excuses the coaching staff could make for the starting unit. You cannot blame the new playbook, you cannot blame the new offensive line, and you cannot blame the lack of practice time when the third-string quarterback is walking out there and executing the exact same concepts flawlessly. It proved to the entire coaching staff that the offensive system is perfectly fine. The problem is entirely isolated to the man taking the majority of the first-team reps. And this undeniable reality is starting to fracture the entire organization.
Crazy work. Take a look. Another one.
From the inside out. The locker room environment is rapidly approaching a toxic breaking point, and the outside noise is becoming entirely deafening. You simply cannot lie to 52 grown men who study film for a living. The wide receivers, the offensive linemen, and the defensive veterans all know exactly who is performing better, regardless of what the paycheck says. Super Bowl champion quarterback Chase Daniel recently went on a national broadcast and openly declared that Shedeur Sanders is the better fit for this offensive scheme, stating that his growth and decision-making far exceed what Watson is currently putting on tape. The fan base, completely exhausted.
What's going on at the quarterback competition every single day? That's the number one story is, all right, who's winning, who's doing this? And for what it's worth, like each individual day,
by years of off-field drama and on-field disappointment, is already screaming for the backup to take the reins. Every single intercepted pass in practice goes instantly viral on social media, amplifying the pressure and completely destroying whatever fragile confidence the veteran has left. The Browns organization thought they were buying a perennial MVP candidate who would deliver multiple Super Bowl rings to a starving city. Instead, they bought a massive, unmovable distraction that is currently losing a desperate camp battle to a sophomore 5th-round pick. Ultimately, the Cleveland franchise is speeding toward a catastrophic ultimatum that could define the next decade of their organization. The front office is going to be forced to look themselves in the mirror and make an incredibly painful choice. Do they stubbornly roll out a broken, terrified Deshaun Watson just to justify his guaranteed
trying to execute? There's a lot of new players, too.
New offensive
line, new receivers, all these things. There's a lot that's on their plate to learn this playbook, install it, execute it on the field. The defense, there's a few new faces. Quincy Williams.
Contract, knowing full well he might single-handedly sabotage their season? Or do they swallow their pride, eat the worst financial mistake in NFL history, and hand the keys of the franchise to Shedeur Sanders, the young prodigy who has undeniably earned the right to start? The defense is too good to waste. The offensive system is ready to explode, and the fans will absolutely not tolerate another lost season of endless excuses. The lights are getting brighter, the preseason games are looming, and the starting quarterback is crumbling under the weight of his own legacy. You have to wonder, when the opening kickoff finally happens, who will actually be standing under center when the smoke clears?